أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين وصلى الله على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد
على محمد وآل محمد
الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
صل على محمد
قد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المجيد قوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أولئك الذين اشتروا الحياة الدنيا بالآخرة ولا يخفف عنهم العذاب ولا هم ينصرون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Thank you all once again for coming together on this night. We have one more night tomorrow, and this holy month is coming to an end, to a closure, and we are seeing this month off, and it is a good idea to reflect upon ourselves and to see what we got from this month and what we will do with what we got, to inshallah preserve the earning the benefits of this month in our lives. I would like to speak, if you all are there, inshallah. I think we have the people all online today, right? There's not in the masjid. Okay. Inshallah, you all are with me. Those who can turn on their camera so I can see someone other than myself. That will be a good idea. Okay, so this ayah from Surah Mubarakah Baqarah, ayat 86. It says, "Ulaika alladhina ishtaraw al-hayat ad-dunya." Those are the people who sold the akhirat by buying this dunya, hayat ad-dunya. They made a transaction. They bought this dunya and gave away akhirat. وَلَا يُخَفَّفُ عَنْهُمُ الْعَذَابُ. So their adab will never be decreased. وَلَا هُمْ يُنْصَرُونَ. Nor will they be provided any support. I would like to speak about hubbud dunya today. Love of this dunya, love of this life, lowly life. When the Holy Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked why dunya is called dunya, and he said dunya is called dunya because it is very low. It is very paste. Because dunya means from adna, adna dunya. Adna is mudhakkar, dunya is the muannas of adna. It's this lowest point. Dunya is the lowest point. And it was created after akhirat. So akhirat was created. That's the most important world. And then dunya was created later. Dunya parasti or hubbi dunya, it is to attach ourselves with something that would remove us from akhirat, from zikr al-akhirah, from yad parwardigar, from ibadat, from performing our duties, from being caring towards the helpless, and listening to the voice of our conscience. Dunya is something that blinds us from serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is hubbu zat that can be dunya. It is those things that may drive us more towards staying in this world and enjoying the pleasure of this life, and would discourage us, take away the interest and motivation in remembering and doing something for the akhirat. Because a person who keeps doing more and more of the things of this life for the sake of pleasure will have less and less of pleasure of doing ibadat and things that relate to the other life, until a time might come that he will not or she will not feel any interest or any shawq, any ishtiyaq any pleasure in remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or remembering akhirat, or feeling the khawf of akhirat, feeling the, the fear of departing this life, and will be basically become more and more careless towards things that really matter, even the things that matter in this dunya. For example, that there are so many people in need, and a person will not go out to help anyone and just amass wealth for his own, and will still not be content. Dunya creates more bukhul, more, miserly attitude, that the person has a hard time giving. So that's something about dunya. Dunya is not necessarily the things we use which are halal, not the halal things necessarily. Most halal things, if they have been made halal or mustahab by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they are being done for the sake of Allah and within the limits that are set for those halal things, then that actually is akhirat, that is not dunya. I will mention a couple of riwayat of this subject. We are living in an age and in a time where, dunya is in turmoil. This world is in turmoil. And a human being has to find his or her right place in this dunya. What are we here for? And see how fast time is moving forward nowadays. Things that would happen sometimes in 100 years are happening in 1 year. Things would happen that would happen in 50 years are happening in a day. How much is going on? Just look around us and see what times we're living in. I would like to mention a short story to start for us to keep to think about the importance of this discussion today. If we can have a please loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
It is in the riwayat that Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari came to the Holy Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, last night I saw a dream which shook me, really. I woke up and I'm since wondering what this dream means. And I've come to ask you the meaning of this dream. So he told the Holy Prophet, he said, I saw a big white cloth hanging from the sky, and a big white sheet of cloth hanging from the sky, and a person calling out to everyone and saying, take the whole cloth, take the whole cloth. But people have brought scissors with them, scissors and different kinds of things to cut. And they're taking pieces out of this cloth. Instead of taking the whole cloth, they're taking, coming and taking a little bit of that, cutting it and going away. And then I saw a very beautiful pond from a distance. From a distance, I saw a very beautiful pond. And I ran towards it. I wanted to come and drink from this pond, to come close to this pond. As I came near, I saw this pond, which is so beautiful, is stinking. A very bad odor is coming out of this pond, which pushed me away from this pond. Then Jabir says, I saw two wells, two wells, and a big guy, a tall guy standing in the middle, and he's taking water from one well and pouring it in the other one. And I see that the pond, the first well from which it is pulling out the water, taking out the water is not going down, not decreasing in quantity. And the water in which, and the pond, and then the well in which he's pouring the water is not rising. It's staying as it is. And he says, then I also saw two cows. And one cow is fat and it has a lot of milk. The other cow is really frail and slim and has no milk in it. So, and I see that the people are going towards the weaker cow and trying to squeeze milk out of that, and nothing is coming out except blood. Only blood is coming out of that weak, frail cow, slim one. So, Ya Rasulullah, what is the meaning of this dream? The Holy Prophet said, Jabir, the big white cloth that you saw suspended from the sky, it is Islam, the Shariat Islam. It is the beautiful religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have been asked to take the whole of Islam, and adopt it and apply it and live the whole. But what people do is to come together and take a piece of that and make up their own, way of life, their own interpretation, their own sects, their own belief systems, their own, views and ideas about life and religion, only taking a bits and pieces out of it, instead of taking the whole of Islam. And the Holy Prophet said, the beautiful pond that you saw, it is the alim in Akhirul Zaman. The Holy Prophet said, yeah, oh Jabir, these 4 things that you saw, actually are a description of Akhirul Zaman. Before the end of time, these 4 things that you saw are showing the condition of people in Akhirul Zaman, how they will be, the state of the people in Akhirul Zaman. So in the Akhirul Zaman, Islam, and people, instead of taking the whole of Islam, they will take one verse of Quran out of the Quran or out of context, or they take one Islamic law and leave the rest. Or they take one, for example, I would say, like a personal law and leave aside the social and political and other side of Islam, for example. Or taking one aspect of ahkam and leaving the other ahkam and not act upon them. So the point in Akhirul Zaman is an alim who is really has a good appearance, very attractive appearance, and his character is bad. Character is bad. And when people come close to him, because see, pond is water. Water is a sign of ilm, knowledge. So there's water in this pond, but stink means it's bad akhlaq, bad is not an honest person and all of that. Because of that, people, when they come close to him, they can't follow this alim. Astaghfirullah. The third one, the third thing you saw, the 2 wells, right? And the big tall guy, that big tall guy is Malakul Maut. And he is taking water out of the first well, which is this dunya, actually people dying from this dunya, and he's pouring this water in the other well, which is Barzakh. And that dunya, people dying, let's say, with waba, with disease, with Akhirul Zaman, people will be dying with pandemics and other things. The amount of living is not decreasing still. People are dying. And he's pouring this water into the other one, and people, the amount of water remains the same in the well. And he's pouring the water into Alam-e-Barzakh, taking these lives from these people. Dead people are dying, and they're being transferred into the other life, Barzakh, like this water being transferred into the other well. And Barzakh is not filling up. Barzakh has got unlimited space. The more people die, the more space there is in Barzakh. And then you saw 2 cows, and one is fat one is very frail and slim and weak one, and people are trying to squeeze milk out of this weak cow. That is the condition of people, how they will be divided between rich and poor. And instead of the rich sharing with the poor, people who have more resources sharing with those who are, best with less, who have less, right? Disadvantage. Instead, they are squeezing more blood. They are squeezing blood out of these poor people. These poor people are suffering more and more. Look what, as an example, I'm saying, look in Palestine, what's happening today. How they're subjecting people to torture and massacre and everything you can think of right now as we speak. And in Afghanistan, what happened? The girls' school was targeted by suicide Daesh and these hate mongering, Nawasib and they killed, I think, 40 or 20 girls from that school, tore them into bits and pieces, these innocent students of the school. The poor are made more poor and they are oppressed more and more. The money is squeezed out of the pockets of the poorest nation of this world and transferred. For example, the way money is laundered, money laundering from the poor countries into rich countries. Some rich individual who were in power, they took out all the money from the poor people and transferred into the banks of the Western countries, right? Or for example, in our communities, why I speak about those big things? In our communities, some people are really living big, really comfortable lives, while there are so many others who are struggling to pay their bills, to electricity bills, power, and other things. And generally, I mean, America, for example, this how many people are now struggling because this nation, has squandered the wealth of the not the nation, the powerful people, squandered the wealth of the poor. This is this is all signs of hubbud dunya. Love of this dunya blinds a person, kills the conscience of an individual that does not know limits. Okay, I have taken this much money. This should be enough for me. It's never enough. It's not like, for example, a person who is going into haram will stop at one thing. He's never going to stop. If, for example, society allows people to do whatever they want to do, it's not like they will become satisfied with doing, okay, for example, I remember Ayatollah Khamenei in one of his speeches, he mentioned that the West has legalized a lot of haram things, adultery, homosexuality, all of that. And he said that that was not able to remove as they say, the frustration or the crime. Actually, the crimes have only gotten worse. They take more lives, cause incidents of rape and all kinds of, painful events that we hear about every day. So let me go to some of the riwayat on the subject of hubbud dunya. Please, salawat. Allahumma salli ala
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه.
The Holy Prophet, in one of the hadith, he said, Akbarul kaba'ir hubbud dunya. The worst of all the kaba'ir dhunub, gunahan kabire, bigger sins, the worst of all the bigger sins is the love of this dunya which is past, dunya which is low, dunya parasti. Imam Maula Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam said, Hubbud dunya ra'sul fitan wa aslul mihan. The love of this dunya is the dunya parasti saragaz fitne ha wa rishe hame mihnat ha wa ranj ha. Hubbud dunya, love of this life, is the start of all the sedition, intrigue, and trouble and fasad in the society, right? Dunya, it's the love of this life which leads to corruption of all kinds and all the fitna, fitna in deen, fitna in dunya, all kinds of confusions and misguidance. And hubbud dunya ra'sul fitan wa aslul mihan. It is the root of all human suffering is hubbud dunya. Human suffering is due to the love of this life. Another hadith from Maula Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, Inna dunya la mafsadatul din wa maslabatul yaqeen. Dunya parasti deen insan ra barbad midahat wa iman wa yaqeen ura migira. This dunya, the love of this dunya. Love of dunya means love of yourself, seeking pleasure more and more, wanting for this, centering everything around individual pleasure, individual, self-interest, what I like, what I, what I want rather than what I need. The more of what I want, that means, as I mentioned, I think another night, that a person's aql becomes a follower of the shahwat. Shahwat is the leader. Shahwat is leading a person rather than aql is leading the person. Please cite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل.
Let me mention a little story for you, which is maybe eye-opening. It is reported that Alexander the Great, when he found himself reaching close to his death, he said to his mother, when I die, you offer a grand feast, right? Sufra ta'ami pankuni. Spread a sufra, table mat, like for food, basically arrange for a big food, and invite all the countrymen, all my subjects, invite all the people of my country to take part in this banquet, and make an announcement that all should accept this invitation except those who have lost a dear one. Right? Someone who has lost a dear one cannot attend this banquet. Everyone else is invited. So this was done when he passed away, basically. So, and he mentioned that I want this gathering should be filled with people who are genuinely happy, and they come in and stay happy, so that my Majlis-e-Azha would not have any grief in it. So people will come and be happy in my Majlis-e-Azha instead of feeling sad in my Majlis-e-Azha. That's what he told his mother. So when he died, according to his will, the general announcements was made to all the people to that all of them should come except those who have lost a dear one. So his mother and all his other people of his family, Alexander the Great's family, they made all the preparations, and then they sat there waiting for the people to arrive. And they waited and waited hours, and no one showed up. No one showed up to this banquet, this whatever you call party, this thing, this occasion, this banquet. Nobody showed up for this dinner. And they were very surprised. They turned towards the organizers, their khidmat guzaran, their servants, and they said, what happened? Nobody showed up. So the response was that, well, the way you announced, you told everybody to stay home. She said, but why? They said, because you commanded that all should attend except those who have lost a dear one. And there's no one among the population who meets this condition. Everyone has lost some dear one. Everyone has lost someone in their family who was dear to them. So when she heard this, Alexander's mother, when she heard this, she now understood what her son wanted to, what message he wanted to send. And she said, Farzandam ba behtarin rah tasliyat mara, behtarin rah tasliyat mara tasliyat khatir ba. My son has provided me consolation for his death in the best possible way. Please cite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So we are dealing with Hubbud Dunya, which is the biggest, biggest source of all the hardships in our lives, all that we are failing in this life, all the anguish, all the trouble, all the difficulties and hardship in this life are because of Hubbud Dunya. If we did not have our love of this life in the middle of everything we do, we would not have that many troubles in dunya or in akhirah. For example, hasad is also because of Hubbud Dunya. I will mention this hadith from Imam Ali ibn al-Husayn Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He was asked, Ayyul a'mal afdalu inda Allah azza wa jal. Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam was asked, which of the actions is best in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He said, there is no action which is better in the eyes of Allah after ma'rifatullah. After ma'rifatullah, there's no action that can come second other than bughz of dunya. Bughz means grudge of this dunya. Dislike abhorrence, dislike for this dunya. وَإِنَّ لِذَلِكَ شُعَبًا كَثِيرًا. And he says, the bughd of this dunya has many branches, many ways to show dislike to this dunya. And also for the sins, also there are many branches, many ways people get involved in sins. And then Imam alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned the example, Imam Zainul Abidin mentioned the example of the disobedience of shaitan, which was because of takabbur. And takabbur was because of hub bizat, which was his dunya. And hirs and greed, which was the reason for the sin of course, the word sin is used in Quran for the disobedience of Adam and Hawa, which was not a sin, for example, like Shara'i sin. It was not like a haram thing, like we say in like drinking is haram or these things. It was not a sin of that kind. It was tarki awla Adam wa Hawa. And hasad, jealousy, is also caused by the same reason, hubb dunya. Habil got jealous of Habil and killed him. Right? He says, from this hubb dunya, branches, many branches come out. For example, love of women, like endless, like boundless. For example, a person who just follows his desires. Hubb dunya, hubb nisa, hubb dunya, hubb ri'asa. Hubb ri'asa, power, craving for power, love of power. Hubb raha, love of comfort. Hubbul kalam, love of speaking. There are some people, take up all the time when they're sitting around people, they just won't stop talking. There are 20 people sitting, you see this one man taking up 90% of the time talking. Hubbul ulu was sarwa, love of being higher than other people, love of wealth. So these are 7 qualities. فَاجْتَمَعْنَا كُلُّهُنَّ فِي حُبِّ الدُّنْيَا. And all of them they are collected together, they come together under حُبِّ الدُّنْيا. Then he said, Al-Anbiya wal-Ulama, and Anbiya and Ulama, after knowing this, right, حُبُّ الدُّنْيا رَأْسُ كُلِّ اختيار. And because Anbiya and Ulama, they know and they understand what hubb dunya carries, how dangerous it is. That's why they agree that hubb dunya is ra'su kulli khati'ah. Love of this dunya is the root of all the disobedience, all the misguidance, all the wrong things that people do. Recite the salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
There's some short hadith on this subject. Again, I've only picked the hadith that shed some, look at this topic in a new way. It means shed some light, enlighten us to look at this subject, which seems very simple, in a new way, you see. Imam al-Islam said, "What dunya dunya'an." Dunya is of 2 types. It's not one. Dunya balaghin wa dunya mal'una. One dunya that takes you to akhirat. There's a dunya that takes you to akhirat. For example, you get married, you have a house, you have children, you work hard, you pay, for example, for your needs, you take care of the needs, right? And your niyat, when you get up in the morning and you start your work, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, then when you get some money, you say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. When you spend it, you think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? This is a dunya which is taking you towards akhirat. This is dunya haddi kafaf, dunya which is which meets your needs, that as much as you spend it according to your needs, and takes you closer to spirituality, makes you more spiritual. For example, people who they have homes where they have a place for prayer, they keep a room, for example, or they have their room is decorated with names of Allah or something from Haram of Ahlul Bayt, to remind them that this dunya is transitory. It is only for a short while, and they're in a journey that this is not their final destination. They're right in the middle of their travel. And the second one is dunya mal'una. Dunya mal'una is dunya which is nafrin shude. The dunya which has been cursed, dunya which takes a person away from Allah, further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please say salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
Dunya, what it does is, Mawla Ali alayhi salam says, irfadid dunya. Leave aside the dunya. Inna hubba dunya, because love of this dunya, love of, for example, partying and doing haram and going after all the things, drinking and drugs and haram relationships and using unfair means to get power, to get wealth, and cutting corners, not doing your job, getting money for not doing what you're supposed to do, all of that, you see. What does the love of this dunya do? What is this running after dunya, what does that do? For in the hubbat dunya yu'mi, it makes you blind, wa yasum, deaf and dumb, yasum wa yabkum, wa yadhillu riqab, it brings you disgrace, disrespect, disrepute, and you lose your respect running after this dunya. Like that hadith I mentioned, you know, the alim from a distance looks nice but so here we have another hadith from Mawla al-Muwahhideen Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam, where he mentioned Athare Manfiya Dunya Parasti. He says, explains why, what is bad about it. He said, Hubbu dunya yufsidul aql. Love of this dunya, it corrupts the intellect. Wa yasummul qalb, and it makes a person deaf. And sima al-hikmah, from being able to listen to wisdom. Wa yujibul alim al-adhab, and it causes the worst and the most painful of all the punishments. This is what hubbud dunya. Obviously, you know, dunya, what when a person is following the shahwat and can't think straight anymore, cannot have self-control. So there is, and I'll mention one more point and then kind of wrap this up, that you have a situation in which we find ourselves, which according to Awai Panahian, he's a very famous scholar in Iran. He says human beings, when they find themselves as if they're all left to themselves, they find themselves alone, as if Allah has abandoned them. There's no one will take care of me. I am helpless. He feels himself this fake feeling, this hissek positive. This person sometimes feel like I'm all left to myself. I don't know what to do. Who is going to help me? This fake feeling that instead of reminding himself that I am never alone, that Allah is وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ, that whenever you are, Allah is with you. When a person finds himself alone, starts feeling helpless and feels vulnerable, starts going after anything and everything to feel that I have something, I have resources, I have people, and I have money, and I have this, and I have that, to feel good, basically. Feel good. When a person is alone, he thinks that he can make his own plans the way he wants. That's the state of vulnerability. When a person, you know, and Panahiya gets the example of Hazrat Adam and Hawa. They were given a paradise, the garden, whatever garden that was, to reside in. They were only told, don't touch this tree. Don't go close to this tree. They saw themselves alone. They thought that Allah is not with them. For a moment, the shaitan came in whatever shape and form and gave them false hopes. And they thought that they have to help themselves, that if they don't try to help themselves, they will not get what they want. That a person sometimes feel like, okay, if I don't do what I think I should do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not help me. That Allah will not help me if Allah is, for example, forsaken me, as if Allah is forsaken me and it's left to me to do whatever and everything and anything to meet my needs and my wants. And there where a person starts to slip. A person who knows Allah is with him all the time will not slip, because he knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with him, will not be taken over by his desires. One last thing to remember is that we may have heard it, the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was put in a situation to commit a sin, and Zulaykha had closed the doors, And then she went ahead and put the cloth on an idol that was in the room, on a takhche, on some kind of bracket. And when she put the cloth to cover the face of this idol, Yusuf alayhi salam asked her, "What did you do just now?" She said, "I don't want him to watch me doing anything wrong. Whatever I'm doing, I don't want him to watch me." So Yusuf alayhi salam came to himself and said, the Quran talks about Lawla an ra'aha burhana rabbih. Allah reminded him of a burhan from Allah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this was the burhan. He saw that, he said, this idol does not have life, cannot see, and she's afraid, she's shy and mindful of this idol. And I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is living and alive and watching me. How could I then do anything against his will? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove the love of this dunya from our hearts and give us the ability to use all the resources and means of this life that take us closer to Allah, and to stay away from all the things that drive us away or further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.